Okay, now we get to lie on Facebook. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to this one episode of our Knowledge Fishing online talk show. My name is Manit, and I will be your moderator today throughout the session. The same of previous episode, Knowledge Fishing is an online culture talk show platform where knowledge can be shared between youth and professionals from different countries. And today, topics is to give knowledge on gender equality in our society, especially in the workplace. As it happens, workplace gender equality will be achieved when people are able to access and enjoy equal reward, success, resources, and opportunities regardless of gender. Please stay tuned until the end to gain some knowledge and experience from our guest speakers and get to know more and also understand on both gender equality and inclusiveness in the workplace. For this, we have two beautiful ladies, our distinguished speakers from two different countries, Australia and Indonesia, Miss Amilia Green and Miss Fedelia Deby Subandi. Thank you so much for joining us today. Terima kasih banyak. We truly appreciate for your support and presence here. Welcome, and how you guys doing?
I can begin? Okay. Thank you, Nith. Good morning, good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And thank you for Anchor Social Innovation Park for inviting us. And Amilia, nice to meet you virtually. I'm Debbie, I'm from Indonesia, and I'm really honored to be here to discuss one of the issues that are really close to my heart. I'm doing well, but I'm really sorry if I have cough later on. I just recently contracted COVID, so feel free if I'm not clear enough in delivering my message, just feel free to cut and ask me to answer my question again more clearly. So thank you, Nith.
Thank you so much. We truly appreciate for this. And yes, Emily, good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Debbie. It's so exciting to be here with both of you and to meet you both as well. And it's a topic I'm quite passionate about, too personally and professionally. So I'm in Cambodia right now, but originally from Australia. I also may not be clear at times. I do have the flu as well. So like Davey, please do feel free to ask me to repeat. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. So, okay, so shall we start now? Okay, good to go. Yes, thank you. So without any further delay, since this is more like a conversation, so I would like to start by asking both of you, what do you think about gender equality in general, or you can transfer by in your own respective country? Thank you. You may have the floor.
So for me, gender equality is all genders having equal access to, opportunities, education, workplace, access to healthcare, and then I think as well, on top of that access, having quality access to services, workplace opportunities, training. I think in Australia, we have come a long way in gender equality, but I think there is always still quite a long way to go. I also think gender equality is beneficial to individuals, community, society as a whole. So for me, it's just, it is a field that just covers everything. And it's across like workplace, education, life.
Yeah. Maybe for me, it's already mentioned by Amilia before and also by Nith. Maybe just a little bit of I think I believe that it's also covered the gender-based violence situation and also the situation where women are already empowered. And it is already stated right under the SDG, especially in Goal 5, that countries, including Indonesia, is already committed to gender equality. And however, it's still a quite sensitive issue to bring up, to discuss here in Indonesia, for example, because sometimes culturally it is already instilled, it's already ingrained in our values that maybe one gender are more powerful or has higher hierarchy, more authority than the other, even though women and girls consist of around 49% of the population in Indonesia. So it's half of the population based on statistics, but there are still quite huge gaps on the achievement of the gender development index between women and men. So that means that we still have some quite homework to do.
Thank you so much. So moving to the next question, do you guys think that this is important or consider it is important in our society, especially in the workplace?
Yes, maybe I can answer first. Okay. Yes, I believe it's a really important issue to address in society. And of course, depending on where you are, some place might already nearly achieving the gender equality, or maybe others are not still there yet. And in society in general, it found that societies that values women and men as equal are found to be safer and healthier. And of course, it also applies in the workplace settings or workplace context. And there might be a lot of settings where we can talk about this issue, of course. As mentioned, gender equality could be talked in family role or maybe within community or neighborhood. But why is it important to discuss, especially in workplace? And when we're talking about workplace, especially private sector, sometimes they might think, what's in it for me? Why should we care about gender equality, right? Why should we ensure gender equality in our workplace? And based on the research, it has found that by ensuring gender equality in workplace, it also improves the financial performance of the company itself. So by closing the gender employment or the wage gaps, which are the two subtopics that we usually discuss under the gender equality in workplace, the productivity will increase and economic growth will also accelerate. And maybe if we are talking more in nationwide context, for example, in Indonesia, it is reported if women's labor participation increased by 25% in 2025, it would even generate an extra 62 billion US dollars and boost Indonesia's GDP until by almost 3%. So it's very significant. So so that's why I think it's very important to address the gender equality issues in our society.
Yes, that's interesting. How about Emilia?
Yes, I think that's such a good point that Debbie raised, because when I think when looking at gender equality, depending as well on your background or profession. So for me, I come from the social work background. So my focus on gender equality is often the safety, the community, the benefits to society, both male, women, and any other genders as well. But when you look at the workplace and the productivity increases, the economic benefit, it just shows that it goes further than what may be discussed by the general public as well, like that there is that economic benefit to nations, as well as just, it's not, gender equality isn't just benefiting one gender that may often be discussed, but instead it has that impact on society, that impact on economic performance as well. I think as well, to not just repeat, I think it's important too to have those equal opportunities for women in the workplace, which will also then impact poverty cycles as well, because as women are able to have those financial secure jobs, they are able to take those opportunities to stop some of the cycles and experiences that they may be experienced and that their family and generations before them experienced as well.
Thank you. So by both of you saying this, so it is important and it is the issue that we need to address it. So for the next question, allow me to ask, have you experienced or heard of any of these issues regarding gender inequality or gender discrimination, or especially in the workplace? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Neil, for the question about regarding the experience. And maybe when we are talking about gender inequality or gender discrimination, there are still several issues that are currently still in place and very quite persistent daily in Indonesia. From, for example, stereotyping or gender discrimination and sexual harassment, I think it's still very persistent, and there are still gaps. And also women that are already becoming mothers also often face double burden of domestic work and childcare, especially during this COVID-19. And maybe I would like to tell a little bit of my experience, actually my colleague's experience. A while ago, I helped this as a research associate for this unit under a law enforcement agency in Indonesia. So I work or help a public sector. And I could see in the office, it was a workplace setting, of course, on how some staff that are women, their role are very limited only, for example, to make teas or for preparing lunch, even though their career level are similar with their male counterparts. I don't know why, but somehow they did not get the chance to have more bigger or more significant, more substantial role and stick to the stereotype that woman is for domestic role only. And even though it is in a workplace. And besides that, I also witnessed several sexual comments that are making the staff very uncomfortable. That experience honestly quite disgusts me because I could say that maybe it could also can categorize as sexual assault, even conducted verbally. And even though it conveyed as a joke, I think it was not really funny to talk like that. And maybe other than those two experiences that I witnessed by myself, I also tried to had some discussions with my colleagues, and some of them are mothers, and they also talk regarding the insurance policy, so more on the human resource policy issue. For male employee, they automatically covers the wife and covers the child also, but it's not the other way around. And sometimes society also expect the working mother to be thriving, but with the standard of their male counterpart, but without listening or supporting their needs. For example, after giving birth, they are already expected to coming back for work immediately, or maybe there are no nursing room in the workplace. So I think those examples, those needs of women are really needs to be considered in the workplace. Thank you, Neil.
Yes, Amilia.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Davy. I think I'm going to echo exactly what Davy said in Australia as well. You know, the stereotypes, the sexual harassment, and that burden of care on women who are expected to care for the family, the chores of the house, and then work as well. I know myself, I've experienced the unwanted sexual comments in the workplace by both colleagues and as well when I worked in the service industry by customers too. The stereotypes is another one. I had worked in an industry selling science and tech related gadgets for 6 years. And I had a male co-worker who'd been there for 2 years, and customers would dismiss what I have to say to talk to the tech expert, even though we were exactly the same title in our role. And then I think that experience has been felt by friends all throughout Australia. Then now I'm at the stage where friends are having children and families, and watching them try and balance having that child, providing that care for that child, while then expecting to come back into that role. And then as well, a lot of women I know are in more casualized workforce. So their security of being able to take that maternity leave or take that time and have a job to come back to. Because even though there are those laws in place that are meant to protect women and workers, whether or not the employee actually follows those laws or finds a way around it, So I think, yeah, I'm echoing, but it seems that it's quite across countries, no matter where there is progress, there's still quite a long way.
Thank you so much, Debbie and Emilia, for your openness in sharing regarding of your experience. So I would like to ask for the next question that, in your opinion, what do you think that should be done to improve it? Yes. Any one of you can start first. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think for me, for improving it, I know in Australia there's quite a lot of laws, framework, funding, but I think the government should have quite a key role in this, but there is quite a few laws in Australia and there's still quite a long way to go. So I think there's also some importance and some actions that workplaces can take and consumers can take as well. So in the workplaces, there's what's quite exciting now is having clauses for domestic violence situations where victims of domestic violence are able to leave that contract quite early. So having clauses and an understanding of these experiences in the workplace are important. I think as well, employees, both women and men, because it's not just an area for women to talk about, and that is quite draining for us, should discuss and advocate as well. I quite like the movement behind discussing pay and what you get and what others get, because realistically not discussing pay doesn't benefit the individual but the broader organization, as well as and then I think another one as well is having as consumers making the choices too. I think I find now a lot of the community back in Australia around the early 20s are really starting to understand that consumer pressure and being able to purchase from the services and companies that align with their values. So by talking about those organizations and being able to support them, we can create a bit of that grassroots change rather than just relying on the government or organization. But I do still think it's really important that the government and the organization have that responsibility to make that change and implement frameworks like quotas. I think until we can reach a point, it is good to have goals for organizations to hire to. Yeah, thank you, Nate.
Yes, maybe my answer would be quite similar to with Amilia, and I agree completely with what Amilia has just said. Sometimes we are still in, I could say, maybe denial or feel like this gender equality is not a really relevant issue for all. When we are talking about gender equality, we are not exactly pointing fingers or blaming one gender, I think, but we should as learning together because it really affects all and benefiting all when we are learning more and implementing about gender equality. So I think what we could do to improve the situation to achieve the gender equality targets, I think the leader role is very important wherever the leader are. I think if the leader are already aware or about the importance of ensuring gender equality in the workplace, it is more easier to implement the aligning policies, aligning programs, budgets as well. So for example, they might change the HR policy on wage and compensation and benefit, which are very important, I think, to start. And yes, it's not only a woman's issue, but also for all genders issue. And I think adequate gender policies from the employers, and it might also be helped by the trade unions, it's also would be very important. For example, I think creating a clear mechanism to report sexual harassment, I think it's also one place to start to improve the situation. And the trade unions could also try to promote and advocate gender equality to their members so that the shared equally between men and women, especially on childcare or domestic. And I think the other thing would also about implementing mothers-friendly policy. So it will also help the company to have less turnover rate that are caused by women resigning because they have this double burden because of the domestic role. I think that's all. Thank you, Nit.
Well, thank you. And yes, sure. And I agree that both of you are talking about the both actor and role, any role that play importance in this in building and develop our gender equality in workplace. So for this question, I would like to ask, what are the main achievements of gender equality and inclusiveness practice in your country, in Australia and Indonesia, especially in the workplace? Thank you. Yes.
Okay. For the main achievement of gender equality practice in Indonesia, especially in the workplace settings, maybe I will try to give some examples on the laws and regulations first. For example, nationwide, the Ministry of Manpower Indonesia has already law regarding menstrual leave. I'm not really sure in other countries whether already have this quite similar law or not. But female employees are actually entitled to have menstrual leave for 2 days if they cannot perform their work. Although I think the implementation is still quite confusing and maybe not already implemented in all workplaces, but I think it's a very good start to cater women's needs, which are different, right, with the male counterpart. And maybe the other example also regarding maternity leave. Actually, it's just recently discussed that it might be extended into 6 months, and also for pregnancy loss, also 1.5 months for pregnancy loss. I think it's a really great initiative, and also for the father. So not only the mother, but also for the father. But of course, there are some pros and cons in this initiative. Some might think that if we implement the 6 months maternity leave, the employers will prefer to hire men instead because they don't have to get off work that long. But let's see later what for the implementation. And besides these two laws regarding gender equality that support gender equality, in Indonesia, we also have this GERS assessment tools, or Gender Equality Assessment Result and Strategies. It was published by Indonesian Business Coalition for Women. Actually, it's funded by Australia DFAT, the Foreign Affairs. I think Australia has been really very supporting for gender equality efforts, especially in Indonesia, and it helps companies to track their gender equality. For example, to pinpoint, to analyze their status on gender equality, to pinpoint the equality gaps that are still already there, and also further can create strategies to develop or address the inequalities. I think that's our several cases or practices in Indonesia that I think could be maybe become one of the achievements here. Thank you.
Sarah has taken the floor. That's so interesting, the menstrual leave, because I know that's been quite a key topic. I mean, amongst my friends and the broader community, but that's really exciting. I think for Australia, the achievements that I've really noticed quite recently, I guess, is there's a lot of laws around improving gender equality in the organizations and the services and the sector. And there has been an increase in money to implement these policies, these frameworks, and improve within Australia. So there was one in 2012 that aims to also provide guidance to organizations on how to actually implement this policy, implement these procedures and evaluate how they're working, which I think is quite an achievement, because it's very easy to write a law or framework or policy, but then translating those documents into practice can be a lot harder than just reading and putting in place. And then as well, there's been that promotion of filling boards and executive teams with more diversity, including women. So there has been an increase in women's engagement on these boards, which I think is a great achievement and step in the right direction, because I think as well, once you have one woman or a few women on these boards, it does create a bit of a gateway for future generations and others to then step up and take those places. So they're not trying to take a place from something that's not there. But they're, yeah, the two major achievements I've seen. Oh, and plus the domestic violence clause is something that's quite, I think it's nice to see that there's been good results from that, and that is also understanding that gender inequality from our personal life impacts our professional working capacity as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie and Emilia. So moving to this question, what is your perspective on gender equality at the workplace in developing countries? Especially for Emilia, you used to work with Cambodia organizations, and so what should, also for another question, what should we learn from Australia and Indonesia in terms of the practice of gender equality and inclusiveness? Thank you.
No, thank you, Nate, for this question. I think this question is quite interesting for me, because I have been very lucky in all my workplaces in Cambodia, where I felt that there was movement towards gender equality in the workplace. So my workplace had nursing rooms. They were also looking at the data of how many women and female the female and males are in positions in executive levels or like the contract levels as well. So this was something that was continuously reviewed each year. So I found that very encouraging to see. And then I've also been taken quite seriously as a young female, but I do also want to recognize that I have had the privilege of coming from the opportunity to have education, both bachelor and master's in Australia. So there is a bit of, I guess, perception on that too, as well. I think I am listened to. I think in the workplace, it is important that women are taken serious and that they are listened to. I think maybe there has been times that I have observed that especially younger Cambodian women are often overlooked. It's quite, discouraging. I also think that there is another layer of, I guess, inequality too with the Cambodian and expat staff as well, that you've got this interesting cultural balance and power imbalance, so it's quite a diluted workplace. But I think the one thing I noticed that I think would be so important for Cambodia is every young Cambodian woman that I've worked with has been so strong and so determined and so outspoken and vocal. And I think listening to the women in your workplace, listening to the next generation of what they see, what they want to change as well is so important. So that's the same as going back to how I mentioned in Australia, listening and advocating for that change. It's important as well for organizations and services in Cambodia to take on policies of gender equality, recognizing that not just benefits their employees as persons, but also financially, economically as well, and society as a whole. I think as well implementing laws to protect workers and women in the workplace would also be very important too. Thank you.
Yes, really interesting and happy to hear Amelia's experience in Cambodia, that women are listened to, and also the Cambodian young girls. Maybe in my opinion, about the developing countries, it might be very different in each country. And I think culture might be also a big part of this gender discrimination at the first place. And perhaps we could say that a country might be already developed economically, but not really on gender equality issues. So it's not all the same. So for example, maybe we can say Japan, they are already quite developed in terms of their economy, but still has some gaps in their gender equality. And in Indonesia, maybe the gaps are more created by, or more related more on the conservative issue and religion views here, that might seem that one gender are more has this more authority than the other. But of course, it still needs to be improved in developing countries. I think especially countries with high prevalence of violence against women. And yeah, sometimes it's just not enough of a priority. And I think in terms of what should we learn from Indonesia, I think in general, the government of Indonesia has already created this law and mechanisms to mainstreaming gender budget to the line ministries as well. It was initiated by Ministry of Finance, so I think it's also a good start. And I think each of stakeholders, might be it private sector or public sector, or academia or NGO or IGO, might have different level of already implementing this gender equality. I think for NGO or IGO that are working in humanitarian sector are already quite aware in this issue rather than the others. But I think this kind of cases, this kinds of lesson learned from humanitarian sector, for example, could be discussed with the other public sector and also private sector. I think it might be very different in private sector, for example. I think they might need more assistance or help in implementing all this gender equality tools and assessments that are already mentioned earlier. I think that's all, Neet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So moving to another question is more focused on gender inequality. So will gender inequality in the workplace still be the main issue that we need to, to tackle or to face, and why? Yes, you may have more.
Okay, yes, gender equality in the workplace is still main issues to be tackled. But first, I think the companies and public sector, academia, all the stakeholders need to be aware first and willing to, not in denial, and try to see the perspective that there is still some gaps, there is still some gender bias in their own workplace, and that their problem is real. I think after they already realize that there are still this problem, they can try to move forward and talk and discuss about the issue openly. And I think if this gender equality is not ensured, not addressed in the workplace, the company might have further turnover rate. And for example, in the case of sexual misconduct, it might also be worse, of course, for the branding of the company itself. So I think it's better to prevent and better to ensure the rights of women and ensure the gender equality rather than to solve it later if there's already problems or cases that happens. Thank you.
I think building on from what Debbie said, the denial I think is so important because like I do acknowledge in Australia we've made quite a lot of progress in gender equality, and we do have the platforms to protest and really fight for our rights. So I do acknowledge that. But then there is also that denial of what there's always like this perspective, women are allowed to vote, we're allowed to work, so we have equality, right? So I think it will still be so important because there is still that lack of recognition that the burden of care does fall on women, that gender-based violence does predominantly impact women. So I think it will be incredibly important to an issue to tackle, but first, yeah, there needs to be that recognition. I think as well, like I said earlier, having that secure workplace opportunity then impacts women's personal life too, with the financial security. So there is like this ripple effect when it comes to gender equality. It covers every aspect of life. I think as well, going to the workplace and going back to that branding too, there was recently this movement in Australia where there was a radio host that was saying quite some inappropriate things, and women started contacting businesses that were advertising on his radio channel and making complaints, and these businesses would then withdraw that sponsorship money, withdraw that radio money. So it's important for gender equality in the workplace to occur for women, but I also think we're coming to a point where it's going to be addressed now with social media branding. So it's almost like we can do it in a nice transitional way, or it's going to happen at some point with some frustrated people, which is fair enough. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Deb.
Yes, thank you so much. So like time passed by quickly, so we are now in the last question. Yes, so last but not least, I would like to ask both of you, what is your key message to the audience regarding our topic now?
Yes, maybe I would like to reiterate what Amilia already said before too. I completely agree that we should already realize that there are still some problems, there are still gaps in this gender equality issues, and acknowledging it is the first step, especially for leaders. And we have lots of organizations and institutions, and I think we could maybe start from our organization, from where we work, advocated or give suggestions to the HR, to our leaders, if it's possible. And I think by there, from there, we can try to further design a strategy to focusing and eliminating the discrimination based on gender. And as Amilia also already said before, I think we could do some, give suggestions or even protest if there's some misconduct or some, if, for example, for me, when I witnessed something, at that time, I was not really brave enough, to talk about it. But I think we could start by trying to talk about it or give advice or protest or discuss about it later on. Yes, even myself, sometimes I still feel not brave enough to talk about it, because it's still quite a sensitive issue. But I think it's a good place to start for later to try to advocate it and talk about it more. Thank you, Nate and Amilia.
Thank you for that, Debbie. That's I'm basically going to build on that. I think that's so important, and it's been amazing hearing what you've had to share. I think yeah, my main message would be to talk, and and to listen, because if, like it's been mentioned multiple times, it's quite a sensitive topic. It's quite draining as well if it's been quite an upsetting experience to talk. So to have someone listen, and I think talk with your co-workers, talk with your peers, because it is nervous taking, a system on by yourself, but I mean, there's been multiple experiences that have been similar across countries, just shared here. So those experiences aren't isolated. So if we can talk openly about what is happening, what we've experienced, and then make those suggestions, make that protest, and work towards changing that. And I think as well, it's important for the audience to recognize that it's not just an issue for one gender or one person, it is a societal issue. Thank you, Need and Debbie.
Okay, so any of you wish to add more on this?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, so if there is no for that, since our time is up, yes, I'm sincerely grateful to you to touch on this issue, yes, and to provide us with a valuable speech and information and experience, yes, on the subject, on the topic of gender in your speech, and create so much awareness regarding the same. It is only because of your generosity to spare of your time to us that be able to make our program such a success. Yes, and I get to learn through this, I get to learn one more word of Indonesian. Thank you so much. Yeah, it is about, again, like terima kasih banyak. Yeah, thank you so much, Debbie. Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you so much, Emilia. We truly appreciate for this. And I look forward to our next interaction soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. Thank you, Neve.